Days. Welcome back to Unraveled Radio. I'm your host, Charnel, aka Miss Lovely Locks. And today we have a very special guest joining us. She's a self-published author with a talent for weaving powerful narratives. Welcome, Melissa Chapman.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. We're going to be talking about the brilliant mind behind the book My Serenity, part of an intriguing new series that everyone is talking about.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, Melissa. Thank you so much for being here. I'm thrilled to dive into your journey as an author and the inspiration behind your book. Can you tell us a little bit about My Serenity?
Sure. My Serenity follows a girl, main character named Serenity, and she is a senior in high school. And this her whole career has been her whole student career has been just get good grades and get out. She wants to get out and start a life of her own. So she really never went to parties and never experienced life as a teenager. And her best friend is the exact opposite. And during their senior year, her best friend convinced her to kind of step out of her box, and she meets Prince Charming. And so the story follows her along her senior year journey and experiencing new things. And really, the underlying tone about the book, besides these new experiences, is sometimes we miss some red flags. And I don't want to give away a ton of it, but
Right.
there are things that you don't necessarily see as you're learning and growing, and people around you might see them. And so in this series, you kind of follow her journey and maybe pick up on some of those red flags.
Wow. Yeah, that's true. Even in life now, I look back at things that I could have done different in my, teenage years, the things that were like, that was so obvious, but your mind just does not grasp it at that
That's right.
age. What was the
Absolutely.
process like bringing this book to life?
Actually, this was really a pet project for me. I just decided one day that I wanted to put pen to paper and put my idea down, and that's exactly what I did. I just sat down and started typing it and kind of all floated out of my brain onto the paper, and it was a bunch of jumble. And then I went back and I was like, this doesn't sound very good, and I rewrote it. And then I had a friend of mine who was also my editor go through, and she's like, "Oh my God, I love this, Melissa. This is great." And she's like, "You need to publish this." And
Wow.
so that kind of started my journey into being a self-published author. Uh, it kind of all just happened all at once, I think.
That's beautiful. And that's just like I call it getting downloads. Once your creative juice gets to flowing, it just
It's
goes. And then sometimes you have to, do your revisions, but
It's
it
very true. It just kind
comes
of
to life.
spew onto paper, right? Like it just
Yes.
it's funny though, because a couple of years ago I just had this inkling one night. I'm like, I'm gonna write a screenplay. I don't know why. It just came into my mind, and I'm like, I sat down for 4 straight days and I wrote a full-length feature screenplay, and I did nothing with it, obviously. It just sat there, but I needed to get it out on paper. And then I kind of did the same thing with My Serenity, only I spent much more time with My Serenity. And when I, like I said, when I had my editor look at it, my friend look at it, she's like, "Oh my God, this is get no, you have to give this story to the world." And so that it made me want to go back and maybe think about also taking my screenplay and turning it into a novel as well.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. So what was the full timeline that it took you to finish up with My Serenity?
Yep. So the first time I wrote it, it was the whole book was written minus the last three chapters in the conclusion in about 2.5 to 3 months, and then I put it away. Like I didn't do anything with it, and then again I said, okay, I'm going to pick it up and to rewrite it after my initial review with my editor. It took about another month and a half to get it to a point. I think we had four revisions at that point. And so it took about another month and a half after that. So all in all, I would say with some break, it took about 5 to 6 months to really get it to a point where it it was decent.
And so once you uploaded it to KDP, how long was that process before?
Absolutely. So it took about 3 days to get it right on KDP because you would upload it and then the pictures would come back for the cover and they would say, yeah, this doesn't meet our standards. And so it took about 3 or 4 days for them to approve everything. And then about 24-ish hours once they gave me the okay to actually publish it. So
Okay.
all in all, less than a week.
Wow. And we'll definitely be leaving your link below this video so people can purchase the book.
Oh,
So
I appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome. My Serenity suggests is a theme of like peace and self-discovery. How do those things play in the role of this story?
Absolutely. Definitely self-discovery for sure. She's learning all of these new experiences in life, which she didn't have any prior knowledge to, right? Her best friend did, but she never fell into that. From a peace perspective, however, I think it's the exact opposite because if you think about it, as you're learning new things in life, even as an adult, right? I'm still a little apprehensive when I go into something new. When I decided to be a self-publisher, like those things that are so exciting and you kind of get caught up in the mix, but on the other end of the spectrum, it's not peaceful. It's very almost stressful and you kind of don't know. The anticipation is there and it's great, but it's the same for her, right? Like she doesn't experience a lot of peace because all of the things she's learning and doing in her newfound experiences are like anxiety inducing because she's not sure if she's feeling the right thing, if she should be doing what she's doing. So I think there's a lot of self discovery, but a lot of also, she puts a lot of stress on herself. So peaceful is definitely not something I think she experiences throughout the book, for
Wow.
sure.
Did any of those experiences that you wrote about inspire your personal life?
Yeah, yes, actually. I think there's a lot of me in her. And I think some of the things that I experienced when I was kind of her age growing up, I wrote the book in the city that I grew up in using the experiences that I grew up in. And it's funny because my editor's daughter, who is in her very early 20s, we'll say. She read the book along the way. She was one of my ARC readers. And she went to my editor and she's like, Mom, this doesn't make any sense. 18-year-olds don't go to clubs and they don't drink. And I'm like, yeah, but they do. And these were experiences I had I grew up in a place called Boca Raton in South Florida.
Oh,
And
wow.
it's a very wealthy area. And so I think even back when I was younger, it hasn't changed much, but when you're wealthy and you're young and your parents kind of rule the city, you don't experience the same thing that maybe high schoolers experience in more conservative areas. It was a very non-conservative area. And so I experienced things like being able to go to clubs and bars at 16 and 17. And so Serenity does too. And she's like, this isn't real. Are you really trying to relate to people? And I'm like, yes, but this is how we grew up. This is what it's like when you're wealthy and you're good looking and you have all of these, like, your parents own all of the businesses in this one city. You have it, right? You have a different lifestyle. So I did show some of that and what I went through as a kid in this book with her and her friends.
Wow, that sounds I
It's like a
16
movie,
in a
right?
nightclub, right? It sounds like
That's right.
ready
It's
for the big
true.
screen.
It's very, but I mean, it really was a reality that we had. And so when we told her that, she was like, no, really? It's so different for her growing up. I'm like, yeah, it really was like that. And that's what shaped a lot of, who I am today, because I did all those things when I was younger. I got it out of my system when I was younger, so I can experience adulthood differently. I experienced my 30s, I think, differently than a lot of other kids who didn't go through that. And I think that's how Serenity's journey is also going to play out.
Oh yeah, this book is a series. So do you
Yep.
have the next one? Is it still My Serenity, just like book two, or how does that go?
It does not have a working title yet.
Okay.
It potentially will be book two of My Serenity. It is going to follow the journey. So as I was saying, kind of you miss the red flags, but our readers start to see that in book one, and then in book two, those red flags are going to become more apparent. She's going to start to see the things that maybe she didn't want to see. She's going to start to realize that there's things in life that she's going to have to give up in order to experience some of these things that she's experiencing. And so those red flags are going to become quite a bit more apparent in book two. And I haven't decided if there's going to be a book three. I think I'm probably going to stop with two in this particular set, and then might also follow her best friend Carrie as another kind of
Oh,
arc within this series.
that sounds good. What advice could you give to any other potential self-publishers that are thinking
Uh,
about writing their own books?
Absolutely. First of all, I say go for it. If you've got something to put on paper, it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. If you think you've got a story to tell and you want to tell it, do it. Absolutely do it. Don't let anyone stop you. It is virtually free, and you can get your words on paper and get them published just for you if that's all it takes. But I also give the recommendation that if you're going to do this, think about what your goals are. If you just want to see a book in print for yourself, that's super easy. If you want to see it in stores like Walmart and Target and like bookstores, there's a lot of things that you have to do before you publish. There's a lot of foundational work that has to be done, like getting your own ISBNs and things that I didn't realize when I first published this book. Like I didn't know where I wanted to go because it was just a pet project. And so I kind of did it wrong. And I used the free ISBN that Amazon gave me and realized very quickly that I was never going to get published. I was never going to have it published for wide distribution in stores and bookstores and stuff like that. So I had to go back and republish it with my own ISBN instead of the free ISBN. So I think just know what your goal is and then make sure you do some research before you jump into the actual publishing. The writing the book and the publishing piece is easy if you understand the foundation.
That's some great advice. I never thought about that. Because, say, for instance, you are doing it, like you said, just as a personal project, but the book becomes a hit, and now you want it off of KDP to sell it elsewhere, and you use their IBN. So it's like you got to start all over. So that is
That's
great.
right.
That is great information. Anything else you need us to know about the book?
I mean, I just hope everyone has an opportunity to take a quick view at My Serenity and follow her story. I think it's definitely something that will resonate with the 18 to 30 market. So if you've got, if you got a few minutes, it's not a long book to read, but I think it will provide a punch, right? Like I think you'll follow her journey and you'll kind of get inspired by her journey.
Wow, that's great. Melissa, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. And I'm
Absolutely.
sure our listeners, as myself, am inspired and learned something new today by your creativity and your determination. For all of you tuning in, don't forget to grab a copy of My Serenity. It's a read you won't forget and you don't want to miss. Stay connected with Melissa, her work, and keep following Unraveled Radio for more amazing conversations. Until next time, I'm Charnel, reminding you to keep your mind, heart, and soul unraveled. Let me know if you'd like to hear anything else from Melissa, and her link will be below for the book.
Thank you so much. This has been a great podcast. I really appreciate you having me on, and I look forward to talking to you again in the near future.
Oh, always keep the door open. You have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, you too.
Bye bye.